Good evening, everyone. This is Tommy Duncan, your co host of Black Men Speak. It is Wednesday, August the 2nd, 2023. And if it is Wednesday night, it is Black Men Speak. We'd like to acknowledge Liquid for our theme music this evening and also For Us Films for our video studio. And if you haven't done so already, of course, please subscribe, like, and share this show and its content so we may continue to grow our viewership. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great show lined up for you tonight. We have a couple of items in the news that we're going to address for this evening. Of course, we're going to also have a returning guest so that we can talk about more tax on our community, our economy, and how we're going to grow this thing to make sure that we're taking advantage of this behemoth in which we have just really underutilized. So with that being said, we're going to flip our agenda for the show tonight. Typically, we do our news briefs first. We're going to start with our special guest who has a limited amount of time this evening. And then we're going to cover our news briefs after he has to leave. So with that being said, we would like to welcome and introduce the great Mr. Charles. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you, Tommy. Good to see you again. Thank
How's
you.
everything been going out there in the wild, wild west?
It is just that, Tommy. It is wild out here, but it's been wild. It's been wild, so we'll be able to manage, I believe.
Good deal. Well, hey, my friend, it's been a long time since we've had you on the show, but always good to have you here. There's always something new going on when we have you, and we know that you are all over the state, all over the country, and we just have to make sure that we can get you while we can so that we can keep up to speed with what's happening with our economy in our community. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, the Cliff Notes version? A lot of our viewers already know who you are because they've seen you on our show several times, and we'll allow you to introduce yourself for the few who may not have seen our show before.
Well, thank you, Tommy, and just know that it's always a pleasure to be with you. Uh, Always have a great time on the show, and it's a two-way exchange. I learn stuff when I'm on as well. So, but I do again. I always like to say that I have the honor of serving as president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers. There are 30 Black chambers of commerce operating in the state of Texas. We're, for lack of a better description, the umbrella organization that represents their interests primarily in an advocacy role here at the state capitol. The office for TAC is here in Austin. I'm here in Austin this week. But in my other hat, I chair the board of the U.S. Black Chamber, which is a Washington D.C. based organization representing 152 chambers in 42 states. We're just coming off of our annual conference there in Washington D.C. Week before last. Outstanding, outstanding event with um, just the normal lineup of great workshops, great speakers. Um, for Dallas folk who know Reverend Freddie Haynes, this was his actual first speaking engagement after accepting the mantle from Reverend Jackson at Rainbow Push. And so he did speak for us on last Thursday at the U.S. Black Chambers annual conference. We also had a workshop with Reverend Al Sharpton, a number of, uh, I'll say luminaries, but folk who are committed to the hard work of ensuring that um, uh, government policy does not fritter away or does not disappear, particularly in support of economic issues important to the people that I work for, that is Black business owners. And so that's always a great event, a great conference, and we can get back to that at any point. Then most recently, I also served on the NAACP's National Economic Development Committee, and in that role, I um, moderated a panel uh, um, on economic development at the NAACP convention just this past Saturday in Boston. So there's lots of moving parts, of course, lots and lots of moving entities, all committed to about the same work. Um, but here in the state of Texas, very clearly, we've got some special stuff going on with our state government. It appears attempting to compete with absolutely outrageous state government in Florida
Yep,
for the worst, best, or whatever they call themselves doing. But it's gives us something to do and on every day.
gotcha. No, that makes great sense, and definitely appreciate your thoughts on that. And so I won't get too far off track. I'll reach out to this early. I mean, when you mention Freddie Haynes, my fraternity brother, and him being passed the baton to lead Rainbow Push, Jesse Jackson is going to take a lower key role, obviously, but he has been the face of that organization for 50 plus years or so now. And one of the things that Jesse um, focused on earlier in the game is the economic agenda in the black community. When he talked about sports, when he talked about business, but it was going beyond civil rights to what we call civil rights.
Civil rights.
What do you think with a Frederick D. Haynes, also a minister, also nationally renowned speaker? What do you think are going to be his challenges or opportunities, and how he can make an impact in America, taking over this mantle from Jesse?
Well, number one, he got a great head start, right? He's got a phenomenal launching pad from Rainbow Push. I mean, the work that Reverend Jackson has and the work record that Reverend Jackson has amassed over the years certainly um, ensures that it's not like Reverend Haynes is starting from scratch,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Um, uh, Reverend Haynes is without question, a gifted orator. He's bright, off the charts. He knows what he's working with, and he knows what he's contending with. So I don't envision that there's certainly any drop off. I do expect that he will use that amassed record of service that is Rainbow Push and use it as a launching pad. I believe that the organization will soar to the proverbial new heights under his leadership uh, because black folk we're early adopters. We like new, we like bang, we like power, we like zowie.
Yeah.
And so he certainly can provide all of that from an oratorical perspective, but he can back it up with the kind of a meat that has been the substance of the work of Rainbow Push. And so I think it's a stroke of fortune. And he and I we absolutely have had occasion over the past couple of weeks to do this kind of exchange, and I think we both agreed that um, the word that best describes this particular moment in history is it's providential, right?
Gotcha.
Just the right thing, and it's absolutely um divinely inspired, right?
All right. I
And
would definitely
so,
agree.
I'm giving them a in advance.
All right. But obviously, there's going to be a lot of work to be done to
Absolutely,
take it to the mantle, and obviously, you've got to engage with younger groups. Millennials. Uh, I would say Gen Z, and so it's going to have to be somewhat of an adjustment in terms of building the next generation
yeah,
of leadership, and then getting the messages that are going to engage younger people because they operate a little bit differently than Gen X, the baby boomers.
yeah. And again, I don't think that's the structure. All of that exists inside of Rainbow Push. I think the way he'll be able to make it overt or make it obvious that we got all of these parts working inside our organization, our youth outreach, student groups, the whole thing. It's just that um, we got to acknowledge that Reverend Jackson was an iconic kind of presence. He just took up. most of the oxygen. When you talked about Rainbow Push, you weren't talking about all the stuff that was going on inside the organization as well. And I think Reverend Haynes will maximize the existing structure of the organization and have it reflect those issues that you raised of areas of potential concern.
Okay, good deal. Good deal.
Mhm.
Well, let's continue to move forward and really to the beginning of the meat and the potatoes of the conversation for today. Given where you land, where you spend your time, working with Black-owned businesses, the large majority of them, small businesses in America, what is your take and your research on what's going on in the Black economy and in the Black community? What is your take on the state of the Black economy? Of course, we have talked about this before, and Jimmy has also joined us as well for the
Very
conversation.
late.
Hey, Mr. Stewart. Hey, how you
Hello,
doing,
hello,
Jimmy?
Charles. I
Good to see
apologize,
you.
guys. I just got in from out of town, and of
No
course,
problem.
the
No
computer
problem.
didn't want to act right. So, um, but,
No
but
Good to
but
see you.
but Charles,
Thank
it's
you
nice to
guys for
see you
having me
again.
on. Yes, sir.
good deal.
Um, well, we have had that. We've had that discussion over the years.
Yes,
You know, the, I'm almost hesitant to say
the
the
state of the Black economy.
the best part of it is that not much has changed, and
Okay.
I'll say that despite some evidence of uh, growth in the number of Black-owned businesses, the biggest challenge I see is that we're not the best. I won't say stewards of, but we don't make our money work for us as effectively as we possibly could. And that's part of another conversation that you and I have had offline. And I hope that that's one of the questions that we will get to address. I think civic apathy is really, really, really a drain on whatever our economic prospects are. And I think that the fact that we have failed to wield powerfully whatever political power we have, I think it really, really, really is a drag on what our economic prospects are. And I think that they're particularly in Texas because we have the largest Black population in the nation. I think there's room for us to flex political muscle beyond that is evident by the number of elected officials we have. And I just think that that's an opportunity missed to this point.
Charles, this current paradigm is not working for us. So it is time for us to stop talking about a lack of access to capital, political and lack of political power, and it's time for us to come together and do what we have to do. And we don't do it because we don't want to do it. We make every excuse not to do it, and if anybody gives us a viable reason not to do it by giving us something to hang on to, we'll clinch onto that and ride an excuse till to our detriment. So the basic line is, bottom line is, Charles, if we don't have access to capital like other people do, we're going to have to raise our own capital. I mean, you were very nice and eloquent in the way you said it, but I'm just going to be blunt with it. We have to come out of our own pocket to rescue ourselves. We cannot look to others to come in here and rescue us and put money into fixing our problems in our communities and our businesses when we know what we have to do. So nobody's going to come along and give us a bailout. So now's the time for us to come together with our own money, pony it up, and do what we have to do.
And Jimmy, I think clearly I don't disagree, but I will say yes, but with an asterisk. And the asterisk is 2 points that I'd like to stress. One is that um, we are very, very conscious investors in other folks' enterprises.
Yes, we are.
You know, through 401ks or through our
Yes, we are.
retirement plans, and so it makes almost almost difficult for us to invest in our own because we think our futures are hinged on these funds being successful, right? not thinking that we could take those same funds ourselves and invest them in ourselves and exact the same kind of return that we hope to expect at some future date at our retirement. Two, I as you know, we in this conversation we've had over the years, I take special offense to uh, our inability to exact a return on our taxpayer investment, and we rely on a government for effectively delivering education, police and fire protection, goods and services, smooth, bump-free streets, and all those things.
But
All of
Charles,
those
we don't ask for those
good.
things. Not once have we ever demanded a politician to earn our vote by improving our schools, fixing the streets, better policing, economic development in our neighborhoods. Not once. And so we just go into that ballot box and blindly pull that lever for whatever Democrat candidate is running. We just give it away.
Well, yeah, we'll pull it for a Republican if that's what's on the ballot. I'm not into the partisan thing. That's not my point.
Well,
My
but we
point
have to
is
be
government has
partisan
failed.
in order to get competition. We're gonna have to be partisan. We're gonna have to put one party against the other and let people know that you need to earn our vote. We're not gonna give it to you anymore. That
Well,
in
I
the
think
very least, improving our school system is the one thing we can do for our children. If we don't do anything else, we can demand you fix the schools because some of these schools where you have students, pretty much the entire student body who can't pass a standard test, and these tests are not like a Mensa test. I mean, these are eighth grade standard tests for most states. And to have schools that can't pass that minimum standard test is an embarrassment. And we have far too many of our schools that fall into that category. But yet, we don't ask any party, no matter who we vote for, to improve our schools. I mean, okay, you're not going to give us money to fix our economic system. I understand that. But at the very least, you have an obligation because we pay taxes, property taxes, to support the schools. Can you at least do something about the schools?
Well, again, I'll say yes, you're right, but with an asterisk because again, I know for 10 years I have made demands on elected officials. And I know that I'm not in a particularly unique city. We have elected officials who have been unable to break through to get a positive return, even representing the folk in the way that they do. You know, it's so there is an intransigent element in the body politic that refuses to make sure that black folk get a return on their taxpayer investment. That's the elephant in the room. That does not go away, irrespective of political party.
True.
That's the demand that we have to make. And it's an internal one that we have to make on ourselves to say we're going to stay on this thing until we get the results that we want. And whatever is the alternative to that. And so that's the kind of self-determination move that has been lacking. That again, Tommy, you and I talked about it in our pre-thing, that this civic apathy is just bewildering to me. I don't understand how in the face of a Supreme Court decision or in the face of a state legislature enacting a policy that is designed to cripple you, that we talk about NFL preseason football. I think that's crazy, you know. And so there's no way for us to have any reasonable expectation that public education will improve when our attention is diverted into some Disneyland or something, right? And so that's clearly it's a subjective opinion. That's my opinion, but I believe that it would be
No,
born.
no, Charles, your opinion is absolutely correct. I mean, it's very, I would say, very objective in your analysis. The distractions are to keep the poor down, because let's face it, those who have wealth and have power generally not trying to expand that club out. So they do government, and the government does everything possible, put every regulation in place to keep small businesses down, keep them from growing, being competition to the large companies.
That's right. That's right.
and for what it's worth, I mean, if there is any group of people who have the smallest of the small businesses and the most undercapitalized, those of course are business within our community. and as it pertains earlier to our political strategy, as Malcolm would say, as Martin would advocate for, it's not permanent friends, it's permanent interests
That's
that
right.
you would have. So even if you elected to say, I'm not voting left or voting right, I'm voting my interests, you don't particularly have to be aligned with a specific political party to say we're going to have our guns loaded and we're going to vote for the individual that is going to give us what we need.
Well, Tom, that's nice if that happens, but it doesn't happen. We continually vote against our interests, which is why our interest is not served. Everyone knows that. We have one party that takes it for granted, another party that feels they can't earn our vote, and both of them are wrong in their
Well,
assessment.
in that case, you got to look at a completely different strategy because, I mean, there are other groups of people whose vote politically are split, but they have leapfrogged over our community.
Well, that's
So
why we're not going to be free, Tom, by a vote. So let's
I would agree. I would
let's
agree.
come to that conclusion.
I would agree.
A
I think
vote is not going to free
we've
us.
already agreed on that.
Wealth is going to free us.
It's not just the vote. Clearly, it's not
You
just the vote.
you have your government jump through every hoop in the world if you have enough wealth. If you don't have it, they understand that money can buy votes. They don't care about a vote. If I get enough money, I can persuade people to vote for me. Um, but if we have the wealth, wealth is what they protect. Wealth is what they'll put every regulation in place to make sure that you keep it. The wealthy keep their wealth, and the poor never get the wealth.
Well, you're correct, Jimmy, because if we look at the foundation of our political system, we just look at who it represented at that time, and this is really only an evolution of that process. It was built to represent the wealthy, the landowners, and they were pretty much all white men, and this is just a derivative of that.
Well, Tom, they were all white men, but we
Yep.
had some pockets where we had some success building wealth. Is when people were in their right mind, who came together to pool their resources. I mean, I hate to keep going back to Black Wall Street, but those people did it the right way. People moved to those areas for jobs and opportunity. They made a point to do business with each other. If they didn't, if the white banks didn't want to do business with, they opened a black bank. When the white buses in Tulsa stopped driving to their areas, a couple of doctors came together and did what? Bought some buses and started their own bus service. My point is that if Dart stopped driving to South Dallas right now, Oak Cliff, what would black people do? You just sit and cry, and no one would ever think to go to Coaches or Greyhound and buy some used buses and start your own bus service or to open your own bank. I mean, we are so dependent on someone else coming in and rescuing us. And Tom, I'm just not going to buy into we don't have the capital. I mean, I keep hearing. I mean, I just came off the road. I just came in from the airport. That's why I'm late. I'm sorry. And talking to some small business owners, and what did I get? We don't have access to capital. Well, whose capital are you trying to access? Are you trying to access your own capital? Are you willing to put your funds together, my funds? We can put $20. Take 100 of us, put $20 a week in, and raise $100,000 every year to capitalize a business. But I couldn't get 100 people to give me $20 a week. Not $20 they need to pay their mortgage or car note or buy food. We're talking $20 of club money, drink money, smoke money, money that you blow off. You can't take a sack lunch to work once or twice a week and put $20 aside. I mean, we can capitalize our own interest, Tom, but we're so bought into that somehow we're supposed to go get money from other people. And other people, I mean, let's face it, if they're going to give it to us with all of the white guilt that we've played into the system, if they're going to give it to us, they would have given it to us already. They are not going to give it to us. No one's going to come rescue us. We have to do this ourselves. If we're not saying we're going to go it along, we're going to do whatever we have to do, just like we capitalize those churches, because we spiritualize that when God, when the preacher says God said for you to give and give till it hurts, and, put into the building fund. We don't have a problem building mega $1 million churches, and we have some doozies down in Dallas and other places in the black community. But when it comes to capitalizing a business, we're on our knees begging folks. So just like we build those mega churches, we can build a mega business. We can do this, but we have to be convinced that we can do this and get past our trust issues.
And before we move forward on that one, Jimmy, let's acknowledge a couple of our guests who are on the chat line. We want to thank those who have joined us today. Of course, I have my good brother, Uncle Asar Al Kabelan. We want to thank you for joining us today, as you do every week, with rare exception. Thank you for joining us, Miss Audrey K. Booker. Thank you for joining us. Shout out to
Yes.
you as well, Brother Ed Gray, the commish,
The commish,
as
yes.
well. Has a great
I
show.
missed his show this week, and I apologize.
Okay, good deal. Miss Tanya Hall is on the line. We want to thank you for joining us this evening. She also has a news show as well that she does every day, every weekday. Brother Marvin Jones, thank you for joining
Oh,
us.
okay.
Yeah, Marvin.
Used,
The
used to be the Mary Kay exec.
Exactly. Well, he's retired now.
Retired
Been
now,
retired
yes.
for a few years. But Marvin Jones in the house, Miss Lisa Patterson, the counselor, attorney, Lisa Patterson, and we have Bush 18. Not exactly sure what that stands for, but Bush 18 in the house. Want to thank you for joining us this evening. And Mackie Samuels. I think this is the first time I've seen Mackie on the line. So we want to thank everyone who has joined us this evening. Please contribute to the conversation. Let us know your thoughts, any questions that you may have right now as we continue this show. And just Jimmy, as an FYI, Charles is going to have to break out about 8:45. He has another commitment, so
Charles, oh,
we just,
okay.
yeah, we
But
just
Charles,
started this.
before you go, I'm sorry I'm late. So Tommy may have already asked this question, and I'm curious to get an update. How are we doing with our state of Texas? I mean, the numbers seem to be going down as far as state contracts for black-owned businesses, and we have the largest number of black-owned businesses in America in this state. Um, I mean, please tell me that somehow it's getting a little better, maybe.
Well, one thing, we got the largest black population
Correct,
in 50 states.
correct.
Uh, both Georgia and New York have more black-owned
I didn't
business
know that. Okay, I thought we were number
than
one.
Texas.
Okay.
However, Texas has been a leader in the rate of business formation among Black folk for nearly 2 decades, and clearly leads the nation in the rate of business formation among
Okay.
Black females. And so now back to our state spending. Our state um, uh, is there's no other way to characterize it other than it is just absolutely hateful as regards opportunity for black-owned businesses. And so, uh, last biennial budget, we had to round up to 1% of state spending with black-owned businesses. White women, as in virtually every governmental jurisdiction, from state to county to municipal, white women have been the biggest beneficiaries of whatever has been deemed to be affirmative action, and so or diversity
That's
efforts.
that's always been the case.
And
Yes,
so for to have this insane intimation that somehow black folk have benefited unfairly from this state policy on diversity, which we have seen in this special session, this next upcoming special
To
session
round
one.
up to 1%, Charles, is an embarrassment.
Oh, it is
Um,
absolutely embarrassing.
I mean, it was when it was 10, 20 years ago. It was a little over 1%. It was an embarrassment. Um, it's still an embarrassment.
Well, interesting thing is and I watch it very closely. Of course, when I first started coming down here to Austin, we were at just under 4%, and that 4% represented about $300 million worth of opportunity for black-owned businesses. Now, 1% of state spending represents about $300 million of opportunity for black-owned businesses. So the appearance is that someplace behind the machine, behind the curtain, somebody has determined that $300 million is
There's
enough
a
for
limit. That's
black
a
folks
cap.
to
That's a
make,
ceiling.
and that is absolutely crazy to me. Again, back to my earlier point about the civic apathy, that does not change with just Charles O'Neill standing up saying that's wrong. That changes when they can't walk through the halls of the Capitol because there's so many black folk in there saying you can't do that with my money. You know, and so again, since I tell folk all the time, that's why I don't have any hair, right? I just think that I just think that um, I've told Governor Abbott this, uh, that he governs as if black folk don't exist,
They don't, Tim.
and
Doesn't he have
and that's accurate. But nonetheless, that's our fault because if you go in the Capitol, you don't see black folk,
That is true.
and that's crazy because I can go when it's budget time and go down there and it looks just clogged up with folk down there cutting up the pie,
Hmm.
but none of them look like us. And so consequently, the folk that we have entrusted with our interests, black elected officials, can only act on stuff that other folk want because our issues aren't even on the table.
Well, my rep is Frederick Frazier, so remember that name. I've donated to him twice. I've discussed the issue of these contracts. State contracts with black-owned business is a dismal embarrassment. He says he's willing to sit down and talk and hear out whoever wants to discuss the issue. So next time you're in Austin, please knock on his door and hold him to it. Frederick Frazier.
Absolutely will. And there is one black Republican, Charles Cunningham. Interestingly, Brother Cunningham had two ancestors who served in the Texas Reconstruction
Okay.
legislature. But he is already run afoul of the Republican caucus because he doesn't support vouchers, because he knows the vouchers are not good, for the people that he represents. And so
Charles, we were different on that one, but we need to do something for the schools, some kind of competition system where schools have an incentive to do better, and right now they don't. So I'm willing to try vouchers, choice, even if pay people to keep their kids at home, which seems to be where we've been getting the most success from a lot of our kids. But whatever it takes, this is a petri dish for experimenting. We got to find a better way than what's currently in place to educate our kids.
The Texas Constitution calls for a system of public free schools. That's not a wish thing. That is a constitutional mandate. In fact, the facts are that public schools, as black folk have experienced them, have been hamstrung by withholding of funds designed to improve educational outcomes, expressly because there are schools that benefit black folk. You can't escape the elephant in the room. And so to say that all of a sudden now we can make schools improve by offering a competitive free public charter school, that's bullcorn. I don't my mother was a public school teacher. I don't take that one. Public schools are required by the Texas Constitution to withhold funding from those schools expressly because you don't want to educate little black and brown children is criminal, and to offer them the alternative of some fantasized improved educational outcome by this competitive private for-profit entity is bonkers.
Well, Charles, I'll say
but I won't move off of that one.
That the first black public high schools, the four Dunbar high schools, when you look at the history of those, they're really like the who's who of black history, and they were not funded at the same level as white schools.
That's right.
But they set a goal. Their bar was to compete against the best and elite schools on the East Coast, and they did that. They outperformed every school on the East Coast except one white private school. In fact, they were so successful at educating black people that people thought that they were cheating, that it had to be. But Charles, this is a school system. These first couple of black schools, where you had the elites of the of black history that went through these, either graduated from or taught at them. And so if we could do this during the 1920s, when lynching and killing and the KKK were free to do whatever they want, the height of racial segregation and prejudice and racism, then there's no excuse for us not being able to do it now. And so you hit it on the nail, or the nail on the head. The schools don't want to teach. So you can put all the money you want to in them. The bottom line is they don't want to teach black kids. Back then, when the grandchildren of former slaves who didn't have the formal education of elementary school or junior high. In fact, to get into the black high school, you had to go through the M Street Prep School, and some historians have said that that program was the equivalent of a junior college degree today. So this is how high that the bar was set, and those kids, grandkids of former slaves, excelled and outperformed their white counterparts, their Jewish counterparts, and any Asian counterparts that they had at that time. There's no reason we can't get back to that if there is a desire to actually educate the kids. Throwing money at it is not going to. Well, I say double the property tax if that would fix the schools. But the reality is, Charles, and I know you believe in it, and I'm not faulting you for believing, but history has shown that throwing money at our situation and just going along with the program is not working for us. We have to get back to the days of what worked. And what worked was setting the bar really high, maybe getting a belt out, turning the TV off, and making your kids. We know our kids can perform at exceptional levels. We chronicle a lot of those kids on this show. Exceptional kids who basically were homeschooled and
Well,
didn't know that they were not
Why don't
supposed
we
to
do
perform.
this, Jimmy?
I'm
We have
not.
about 8
Yeah,
minutes before
Oh,
Charles.
I'm sorry. I got to talk. I need to just cut me off, man. I'm sorry.
but
Tom,
I
Tom
am.
could have muted me.
I am.
before we go,
Go
Tommy,
ahead,
I
Charles.
just want to say this. I'm not here to argue about an education. I'm not an education expert, but I will absolutely stand by that there was no discernible malaise attached to public education until 1954. And we can trace whatever we have experienced, that is, particularly of Black folk, whatever we have experienced is a direct result of the Brown decision. And when you saw the flourishing and the preponderance and of private schools, the Jesuits here in Dallas, the St. Mark's, the Ursulines, the Green, whatever, and the academies all across the South, just because they didn't want to educate their children next to a black child. And so to say that all of a sudden now all we want is an equitable outcome for education, and we can't achieve that by spending more money on it when you have consciously withheld the money. So, but that's again, that's an opinion. I'm not an education expert, so that's my deal. I can
All
talk
right,
for days about black business.
good deal. I want to acknowledge a couple of comments on the chat line. Ms. Audrey Booker, in reference to earlier, said we must hold politicians accountable for our votes. We need to hold black organizations accountable when they're always asking for donations for social and economic causes. Mackie Samuels, on a previous podcast, what careers black men should pursue with the goal of dominating those fields. He's recommending HEAL, healthcare, education, administration, and literacy. HEAL professions make up 24% of the economy, whereas STEM represents 7%, as discussed in Richard Reed's Of Boys and Men. And black men make up only 2% of classroom teachers, and their presence in the classroom would be a game changer for guiding the academic development of black boys. Finally, black men make up 2% of nurses, and because of men's strength and stamina, black men could do well as nurses and earn a strong income with pension benefits in many cases. And Bill Nicholson is on the line as well. We have about 6 minutes. So what I'd like to do
Let me
is
ask
Charles, give
Charles,
you
what's going on with the U.S. Black Congress?
exactly. I want to
I
give
know you
him
guys always have
kind
new
of
innovative programs and
we are
things going
right,
on. So
right. And so
a couple of
what we
those.
want to do, Jimmy, is give him a chance to talk about their
Right.
upcoming conference coming up, where that's going to be, what that's going to be about, and then any closing comments on strategy, what we need to be doing before he has to drop off. I definitely want to be respectful of his time.
Yeah, we did early on, Jimmy. Before you got on, we did talk a bit about some of the things that we experienced during the U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated annual conference this past week before last, now in D.C. There's a couple of things that particularly of particular focus that we are attempting to, and have for the last couple of years attempted to bring down to the state level, and that is across the country. It addresses, I think, one of the key points that you made earlier, Jimmy, that is that we have to grow our own businesses through our own resources. And one way that we believe that is achievable in the short term with long term positive benefit is through uh, uh, generically mergers and acquisition, but it, that's the technical term for that. But it's
Mhm.
mostly uh, committing among ourselves to growing businesses to scale. We understand that the global marketplace is a dynamic and highly competitive. And most of our businesses are unable to access capital for growth because you just don't show up big in the marketplace. And
True.
so, for a best example I love to use is that in a marketplace that has 5 black plumbers, most likely 4 of them are going to be idle while one is working. So that means that we've got 4 phone lines that are not being used, or 4 receptionists that aren't being used, and maybe 4 fleets of plumbing vehicles that aren't being used. And
Right.
so that's an ineffective and inefficient operation, but that could be maximized if they were rolled into one plumbing contracting firm. So
True.
we reduce overhead because we know people costs are the highest in any organization, but we also benefit from the collective customer base, the collective trade credit, because all of them are going to, so now our rates that we buy our plumbing supplies has reduced because and then maximizing the by combining the fleets, and we can be more efficient in distributing the workload
And
among our,
cover more territory.
and so those that's again a very
Right.
a small scale a version of what can happen when I call it aggregation of capital is the seed point for this merger and acquisition strategy. We have to understand that one person's money is inefficient to work against this
Correct.
marketplace,
That's
and
true.
so for our combining our financial resources in order to scale up, I think is probably the most efficient short-term strategy, again with long-term benefit for black-owned businesses. If we reduce the number of businesses, but those that remain are better positioned to compete in the marketplace, we have done a good thing.
Absolutely true. 100%.
We
And
will talk and more about this, Tommy, just as I roll on my way out of here.
right,
We will have
upcoming
a
conference.
dedicated workshop for that during the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce annual conference. This is our 35th anniversary. We will be in Pflugerville, Texas, which is,
Pflugerville. Okay.
they call it Austin, but
Outside of Austin.
it is a Marriott Courtyard in Pflugerville. It is the Pflugerville Convention Center. We had our conference there in 2019. So we're returning there, a great facility. But as always, we'll have great workshops, starting with Texas Black Economic
And it's
Forecast,
generally in October. Is that correct?
September 14th and 15th.
September 14th,
That's a
15th.
Thursday
Okay.
and Friday. Uh, Golfers can come down and play golf on the 13th. I'm still working on my jump shot, so that doesn't affect me at all. But 14th and 15th, we again our Texas Black Economic Forecast delivered by a Washington D.C. based economist William Cunningham for the 9th year he's been with us. We will have SBA regional administrator Ted James with us. We will have a the president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers with us, and the associate administrator of General Services Administrator, talking about federal real estate procurement opportunities. Our usual lineup of workshops, from access to capital to mergers and acquisitions to AI, all in a family forum. And so with 30 black chambers across the state, uh, and we've got one mystery guest that we're holding out hope that we can get him on, and if we can get that on, I'm certain that it will drive attendance to the conference, but will also be a big benefit. So we're going to hold that one off for another week or so. But all in all, every year we've had a great. Last year we were in Dallas. at the Black Academy of Arts and Letters. We had about 250. We're looking for 300 to 400 folk in attendance this
You
year
will.
in Austin. So it's up on our website, TAAACC. That's T3As2Cs.org. That's the TAC website, or find it on TAC's Facebook page. And so, again, I always thank you, Jimmy and Tommy, for providing this forum.
Oh, we appreciate you coming.
And any time that I can, I hate that I have to jump this time, but I'd like to come back, and next time we can do
Anytime.
an hour and 15 minutes.
Yes, anytime. You're welcome back anytime. Just let us know when you have availability.
All right.
We'll easily squeeze you in. You still hold the record for one of our most viewed shows.
All right. That's good for you two alphas to have that Omega man hold up.
Oh man, look what the door opened.
Yeah.
Somebody had to start this whole thing, man. So we're glad you were able to join the party, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's all
Yes,
love, it's all
sir.
love, and what we call it D9 strong. D9 strong.
You try and then you get it right, But it's all right.
You get it right, some folks try to follow. That's okay. We'll
Man, thank y'all so much, man.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay. Really, really appreciate it.
All right, we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks a lot.
Uh-huh.
All right, folks. Well, we are back. And Jimmy, we have a couple of things that we want to share that's happened in the news since we were last here. And Jimmy, just a lot of great stuff in the news. First, I know that I may have mentioned this last week, but the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, of course, had its general convention this past weekend at the Dallas Hilton Anatolia. We had 5,000 registered folks, registered brothers, suited and booted and ready to go. Probably something that Dallas hasn't seen before. And started out with a march for justice in downtown Dallas, given things that have happened within the state and being visible as Black men who are organized in this city and within this state. So, of course, that was a great look. And a lot of things happened through the weekend. Some folks may or may not know, but our 2025 General Convention was scheduled to be in Orlando, Florida. The board of directors has decided to pull out of that because of some recent decisions, of course, of the State House in the state of Florida. And so they decided to pull out their economic impact in that 2025 convention to make our political statement. And then probably the other most significant news is that our fraternity brother, General Charles Q. Brown, who is the chief of staff of the Air Force, four-star general, of course, has been nominated to become the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which, of course, be the most highly ranked individual among all of our military staff of the United States. He was awarded the fraternity's highest recognition of honor within the fraternity. And so we acknowledged him during our convention during that time. I believe it's called the Alpha Merit of Honor. It is the most highest award that we could give. So all that being said, it was a great time, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of friendship, took care of business, and we called it a wrap and went back to our respective homes. But we will get back to what's in the news. Jimmy, I don't know if you saw this a little bit earlier today, but it looks like a couple of days ago, the settlement of the Henrietta Lacks family lawsuit against Thermo Fisher was settled this past Monday. For those who may not be aware of who she is, we've talked about her on this show before. Back in 1951, some cells, cancerous cells, were taken from her cervix without her acknowledgement, which is unique because she had a very unique set of genetics. Her cells, unlike most people who can only live for a certain amount of time after they leave her body, live perpetually. As a result, the pharmaceutical industry was built, literally built, on her cells. That has created a multi-billion-dollar industry. Unfortunately, she didn't get any acknowledgement, and her family never got compensated for that. Well, this past Monday, there was a lawsuit that was filed in 2021. They came to an agreement and a settlement out of court We don't know the numbers on that, as that was not revealed, Jimmy. But
No,
this,
it was a sealed agreement, Tom.
what's that?
The agreement was sealed,
Correct,
so
correct.
they're not going to release the numbers.
You're correct. But it does bring some conclusion to an unfortunate situation where literally, something was taken from her. Unfortunately, she died pretty soon after this procedure had happened to her, and her family has had to suffer through that ever since. So we definitely hope the best for her family.
Well, Tom, the cancer was going to kill her anyway, so the procedure didn't. So let's not confuse it. The procedure didn't kill her, and in fact, I'm not even sure how she was being treated for cancer.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've heard the story that the biopsy left her sterile, but
Yes,
with
it did.
advanced cancer at that stage, I don't think she would be trying to have a child at that medical. But then on top of that, I'm not
You're right,
sure
Jimmy. But you have to.
how legally if you're being treated for something while I mean, I think the hospital initially said they had a right to do the biopsy. I'm not sure how they did a biopsy on her without her approval, but if she's
That's
being
what they
treated for
did, Jimmy.
cancer.
This was the 50s, Jimmy.
Yes, right. But you're
This was
being treated for cancer. In order to detect whether these cells are cancerous, you have to do a biopsy on it. I think that goes with the procedure. So I'm not sure if it just wasn't clearly outlined to her how they left her sterile. But you're right. She died shortly after that. The cancer did. But the her cancer cells, generally, if you remove cancer cells out of the body, because they're tied to they need nutrients to grow and live. They need a blood supply. Generally, when you take them out of the body, they die.
And in this
But
case, again,
her cells didn't.
and that is what made this incident
Oh, it
very,
allowed for
very
cancer to be treated,
exactly.
to be tested, where you can have living. Because else you'd have to keep finding people with cancer and cutting them open to get cancer cells, trying to keep them alive in order to test medicines against. So yes, a huge advantage to have cancer cells that can live outside the body that you keep alive.
Well, Jimmy, I would say this: whether it's 1951 and the way that
But we're
they,
happy for her
but
family.
again, unless whether we're talking about 1951 and the way that a black woman was treated in the hospital for cancer treatment, or in 1920, I'm sorry, 2020 and 2021, how black women were treated when it came to COVID. I mean, there's not a significant material difference, but at the end of the day, we do offer the best to her family. Hopefully, they got a fair settlement on behalf, because it's been 70 plus years since this happened.
No,
And
Thomas, it was a
it's been
nuisance
resulting
payoff.
in, right now, even though
They
we
got
know
enough they
we
got
don't
enough
know
money
that.
for them to go away.
Well, at the end of the day,
And
that's
to make the story go away. I mean, that's what
exactly,
they got. So,
exactly. So we
but we're
definitely
happy
hope,
for them, and hopefully they can close the chapter on this and
yeah,
find.
because it's honestly going to be a lot cheaper for them to make the story go away, and it'll be a lot less expensive for them to settle now and to settle later. That's what it comes right down to. But it also leads to the fact of how our community is treated by healthcare community. So
Oh well, Tom, we are an afterthought a lot of times. We know the history of this industry towards black people has not been great. They've used
correct.
us as laboratory mice over and over, infected us with syphilis and all kind of
Starting with the beginning of gynecology, where our ancestors, our women as slaves, were basically treated as lab rats
well,
in order to build the field of gynecology.
yeah, the doctor who's cited as being the father of the gynecology discipline.
More like the
Yeah,
Frankenstein of
yes, that's exactly what
more
it
like the
was
Frankenstein.
for the experiments and nefarious things he did to black women in order
Nefarious
to
is a very
advance.
nicely put word when you consider what he did.
So, so yes, we have not always fared well with the medical industry, and we still don't
Correct.
believe. But that's something, Tom, that we're going to have to learn to stand up for ourselves and fight for our rights, and stop going along with the program simply because other people tell us is what we should do. You know, we got to do what we think is the right thing to do. Anyway, do we have time for one more story? I
Yeah,
thought
we
we
do.
had.
We do.
Okay.
Other story that we'd like to show a little bit of input on, we've shared this a couple of times, is that in the country of Haiti, the Kenyan government has
Uh,
expressed its readiness to send about 1,000 troops to Haiti to help with their security efforts there, to attempt to try to stabilize
so the
the.
offer's been made, Tom. Or are they going to do it?
Well, at this point, they're seeking support. They have said they would be willing to lead the contingent of forces there by sending 1,000. They've committed 1,000. And within the last few days, the Bahamas said they have committed somewhere in the range of 150. And so you have a government on the other side of the world who said they're willing to send troops to help with security and peace treatment.
Well, Tom, we already knew that
That is
our country is
maybe an
not going
hour
to get
and a half
involved.
from Miami. So all that being said, kudos to the
Yes.
Kenyan government. Foreign Minister Alfred Mutua, the Kenyan government, said that the African nation is committed to deploying the contingent of its police officers to help train and assist
And that's what it's going to
Haiti's
take,
national police
more
towards combat.
black nations to get involved.
Yeah, but there are only so many nations that we have, and quite frankly, the military, the paramilitary, and most of the other Caribbean nations aren't really that large.
Well, Tom, the African nations can do what Kenya is doing. I mean, if every one of them threw in 1,000 troops, you'd have over 50,000 troops available to you.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous that you have to come from the other side of the world when the most powerful country in the world, with the most powerful military in the world, is only an hour and a half.
Tom, the most powerful nation in the world caused some of the problem. I think they were behind the
I
overthrow.
know that. And
So,
you know what? If and when Haiti is stabilized, guess who's going to have their grubbing hands trying to get some economic benefit when it's stabilized? Same country. Same country.
Well, that is true.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is, if you want something from the country, help it.
Well, this is another opportunity, Tom, for black people here to invest in the island, and our government may be motivated to protect your investment at that point. But otherwise, Tom, they're going to look at you right. When it's stabilized, they'll be first in line
They're going to put their grubby hands out there to try to get some benefit from it. But
to set up shop and rape the
Exactly.
resources.
Exactly. And this is the funny thing as well. The Dominican president, Luis Abinader, has been calling on the international community to help with the crisis. This is the president that's on the other side of the aisle.
Right.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So all that being said, we definitely want to give kudos to the Kenyan government.
Yes, we do.
For standing up from the other side of the globe to help support its African brothers and sisters in the country of Haiti. And we definitely hope and call and demand that other African countries support the Africans in Haiti, and more importantly, keep the grubby hands out of these other folks who mean you no harm out of there as well. So if you go in there, you stabilize it, work together, form partnerships, build your economies so that you can rebuild your own people, your own government, and take advantage of what's there in terms of mineral wealth, in terms of people wealth, in terms of opportunity.
Establish trade once peace is established.
And building our own economy as opposed to building other people's economies.
That's what we have to do, Tom. So kudos for Kenya.
Absolutely. All right, Jimmy, we're right at the top of the hour.
Okay. Look at perfect timing. Were there any other news stories what about notable deaths? Did we have any this week?
No, we did not.
Okay, that's good.
All right, Jimmy, that's it for now. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us again. Every Wednesday, if it's Wednesday night,
it's certainly Black Men Speak. So we'll see everyone same time, same channel, same bad time, same bad channel. So with that being said, ABC.